Night watchmen are paid to notice changes. A door left open, a light where none should be, a signature missing from a page. Most changes have simple causes. These 3 records concern guards who found the opposite problem. The building looked ordinary, but its systems insisted that someone else was completing the same rounds. Case number 13 begins inside an elevator that had served 6 floors for years. I worked security at the Caraway building in downtown Dayton for almost 9 years. It was a narrow brick office block built in 1936, with 6 floors above the lobby and 1 basement. During the day, it held accountants, insurance agents, and a dental lab. At night, it was mine from 11 until 7. My rounds never changed. At midnight, I checked the loading door and boiler room. At 1, I walked floors 2 through 6, testing the stairwell doors. At 3, I repeated the route and recorded the elevator mileage from a little counter behind the service panel. The elevator was older than I was. Its brass panel had buttons for B, L, and floors 2 through 6. There was no first floor button because L was the lobby. One Monday in January, I stepped inside after my midnight round and saw a button marked 7. It sat above the button for 6. The metal matched the rest of the panel, but the number was clean and bright. I thought maintenance had added it as part of the roof work, though that made no sense. The building ended at 6. Above it were tar, vents, and a water tank. I pressed 6 and inspected the new button as the car rose. It had a small amber lamp behind it. Around its edge was a dark line of grime, as if fingers had pressed it for years. The next morning I asked our property manager, Len, about it. He rode the elevator with me and found only the old panel. Above 6 was blank brass. Len said I needed more sleep. The button returned the following night at 1:13. I photographed it with my phone. In the photograph, the panel stopped at 6. For 2 weeks, the button appeared only when I was alone. I stopped using the elevator after midnight. Then the stairwell door on 6 began sticking. It would open from below, but when I tried to descend after checking the roof access, the handle refused to move. The elevator waited at the end of the corridor with its doors open. I could either call Len at 2 in the morning or ride down. I chose the elevator. The button for 7 was there. The doors closed. The car started upward. The floor display passed 6 and showed 7 in a shape I had never seen on it before. The car traveled for 12 seconds, longer than the trip from lobby to 6. My ears changed pressure. Then the doors opened. Beyond them was a corridor shaped like the 6th floor but unfinished. Bare bulbs hung from a concrete ceiling. The office doors were dark wood with frosted glass, the style visible in old photographs of the building. Rain clicked against windows at the far end, although this corridor should have been above the roof. The nearest door read Caraway Security. Our security office was in the lobby. I stayed inside the car and pressed L again. Nothing happened. The doors remained open. A desk phone began ringing behind the marked door. After 4 rings, an answering machine clicked on. I heard my own recorded greeting, the one from the lobby office. Then my voice spoke live through the wall. It said I had reached security and asked for my location. I pressed every button. The elevator did not respond. Down the corridor, one bare bulb lit after another, making a path toward the far stairwell. Each light came on with a soft click. Beneath the last bulb stood a man in a gray guard uniform. He faced the stairwell door. His uniform was the style our company wore before I started, with a silver shoulder patch instead of blue. He lifted a radio to his mouth. My radio crackled at my belt. The man said, "Floor 7 clear." I answered before thinking. I asked who he was. He lowered his radio. Without turning, he said my employee number. The elevator doors began to close. I held the L button until the car moved. It dropped so sharply that I fell against the rail. When the doors opened in the lobby, the clock read 2:48. My phone said 1:22. More than an hour had passed. The lobby security desk was occupied. A man sat in my chair with his back to me, filling out the nightly incident log. He wore the gray uniform. On the desk beside him lay my keys and my thermos, though both were still attached to my belt and bag. He wrote one final line, "Close the book. and walked through the basement door without looking at me. I did not follow. The log he left was dated January 17th, 1984. Every entry was in my handwriting. The final line read, "New guard arrived. Sent him to 7. Len found me outside when he came in at 6. We checked the elevator. The panel was normal. The old log vanished before police arrived, but the ink from its last line had transferred onto our desk blotter. Len replaced the elevator controls and sealed the roof access. I resigned a month later. The company hired another guard named Evan. I warned him never to press a button above 6. He smiled politely and said there was no such button. Last Christmas, he called me at 1:13 in the morning. I heard an elevator bell and rain in the background. Evan asked why the security office had been moved upstairs. Before I could answer, my old desk phone rang in the room beside me at home. I had taken it when the building renovated the lobby. It was not connected to anything. The answering machine clicked on. My own voice asked Evan for his location. I guarded a medical supply warehouse in Edison, New Jersey, during the winter of 2019. The building covered nearly half a block and held pallets of gloves, tubing, and sealed instruments. Nothing was especially valuable by itself, but theft had been a problem, so one guard walked the building while another watched the cameras. On Sunday nights, I worked alone because shipments stopped until Monday afternoon. The company used paper rounds as a backup to electronic scans. 7 red boxes were mounted around the building. Each held a clipboard. At the top of every hour, I wrote the time, signed my initials, and called the control desk from the nearest wall phone. The route began at receiving, crossed the north aisle, entered the utility corridor, and ended at the front lobby. Took 18 minutes if nothing was wrong. At 11:50, I replaced the old sheets with clean ones. At midnight, I signed each checkpoint without incident. At 1, the receiving clipboard already had my signature on it. The line read 1:07 a.m. D. Halvorsen. It was my name and my handwriting, including the way the final N cut back through the line. My watch said 1:02. I assumed I had written on the wrong row at midnight. Then I saw the next 6 rows. 2:07, 3:08, 4:06, 5:07, 6:05. Every line was filled in and signed by me. I took the sheet to the office and compared it with my employment forms. The writing matched. Even the pressure marks were familiar, heavy on the first letter and faint at the end. I photographed it, placed a new sheet in the box, and kept the original beside me. 2, the new sheet was filled out again. This time the entries included notes. 2:09, north exit secure. 3:11, herd cart in aisle C. At 4:08, do not answer wall phone. The wall phone beside the clipboard rang. It had no outside number and was supposed to connect only to the control desk in Newark. I let it ring until voicemail took it. The speaker played my own recorded voice saying I was unavailable. Then another voice left a message. It sounded like me speaking through clenched teeth. It said, "You are behind." I called Newark from my cell. The operator, Nisha, checked the scan system. According to her screen, my badge had already touched all 7 checkpoints for the 2 o'clock round. The scans began at receiving at 1:59 and ended in the lobby at 2:17. While I talked to her, I was sitting in the office with my badge in my hand. Nisha locked the system and told me to remain there until police arrived. At 2:30, the office printer started producing pages. Each page was another completed round sheet. The dates advanced one Sunday at a time. My signature appeared on all of them. The notes changed. Herd cart in aisle B. Found north exit open. Second guard refused to sign. I was the only guard assigned. The last page carried that night's date. The 6 o'clock row read, front lobby glass broken. The 7 o'clock row read, relief did not arrive. Beneath it was an extra line for 8:13. Said, round continues. I heard a cart will squeak in the warehouse. The sound moved from aisle C to aisle B, exactly as the notes had predicted. I watched the cameras. A yellow picking cart rolled slowly between the shelves with nobody touching it. A clipboard rested on top. Each camera lost the cart at the edge of frame. Then the next camera picked it up farther along the route. It stopped at the utility corridor wall phone. The phone rang in the office. I did not answer. The camera showed a figure step from behind the shelving and lift the receiver. He wore my jacket. His face remained turned away, but I recognized the bald patch on the back of my head and the loose right shoulder in my walk. Through the office phone speaker, I heard him call the Newark desk. Nisha answered. The figure said the 2:30 round was complete. Nisha told him I was in the office. He replied that the office was empty. The camera above me showed the same thing. My chair turned slightly, but nobody sat in it. I opened the office door and ran toward the front lobby. At each checkpoint, a fresh line appeared on the clipboard as I approached. The times were 3 or 4 minutes ahead of me. At the north exit, the sheet warned, "Glass next." The lobby window shattered inward before I reached it. I climbed through the opening and waited outside in the snow until police arrived. They found no figure and no cart in the corridor. The printer pages beside my chair were blank. My photographs showed empty sheets. Nisha remembered speaking to me twice, once from my cell and once from a wall phone, but the recorded calls used the same voice. I never returned. The company mailed me the clipboard from the front lobby because my name was written on the back. Under it were layers of older names cut into the wood. The earliest date was 1972, years before the warehouse opened. At the bottom, my name appeared again beside a date next Sunday. Every Sunday since then, at 8:13, my phone records a missed call from the warehouse. The building was demolished last year. The calls continue, and the time beside them is always a few minutes ahead of whatever clock I use to check. I was the overnight guard at the Danner Records Center outside Albany. The company stored legal files in a converted electronics factory with 4 long hallways and a central camera room. I worked alone from 7 in the evening until 7 in the morning. Every 2 hours, I walked a loop with a scan wand. The rest of the time, I watched 16 black and white camera feeds. The first sign was so small that I blamed the old equipment. At 9:40, camera 6 showed a man crossing hallway B. He wore dark trousers and a pale shirt. The image lasted less than a second before he passed behind shelving. I called out over the public address system and checked the access log. No badge had entered after the day supervisor left at 7:15. I walked to hallway B. The lights came on ahead of me through motion sensors. Nobody was there. I checked every door and returned to the camera room. On camera 8, the man crossed hallway C. He was 1 corridor behind the route I had just taken. I rewound both feeds. The recorder skipped whenever his face should have appeared. I saw his shoulder enter frame, then a block of static, then his back leaving. He had a security radio clipped to his belt, the same model I carried. At 11, I began my regular round. I kept the camera app open on my phone. When I reached the North Archive, camera 3 showed the man entering the lobby I had left 90 seconds earlier. When I reached hallway A, he appeared in the North Archive. He followed 1 section behind me with perfect timing. In person, each room was empty. On the screen, he was always there. I returned to the camera room and locked the door. The man appeared on camera 1 at the front entrance. He stood with his back to the lens, facing the security desk through the lobby glass. After a minute, he raised his left hand. I raised mine without meaning to. His fingers copied mine. I lowered my hand. He lowered his. I touched my radio. He touched his belt. Then he moved first. He lifted both hands and placed them against the lobby glass. 2 damp handprints appeared on the inside of the camera room window beside me. I called the county sheriff. The dispatcher kept me on the line and sent 2 deputies. As I waited, the man resumed walking. Camera 2 showed him in hallway A. Camera 4 showed him in the North Archive. He was following my normal patrol route toward the camera room. The dispatcher asked whether I could leave. The only exit required crossing the lobby, where camera 1 now showed nobody. I unlocked the office and stepped out. My phone displayed camera 5. The man stepped out of the office behind me. I turned. The doorway was empty. On screen, he stood within arm's reach, head lowered. His pale shirt was my uniform shirt. A dark stain covered the pocket where my name patch should have been. I ran toward the lobby. The motion lights did not come on. My phone changed feeds automatically as I crossed each camera zone. On every screen, the man ran one hallway behind. His movements no longer copied mine. His steps were longer. He gained distance. At the lobby, the front doors would not release. The badge reader flashed access denied. My access card showed a photograph that was not mine. The face belonged to an older man with deep eyes and a narrow jaw. The printed name was Arthur Danner. Danner was the founder of the records company. His portrait hung in the conference room. He had died before the factory was converted. The phone showed the man entering the last corridor. He looked up at the camera for the first time. He had my face. The image was clear. He looked exhausted and older, with bloodless skin and a bruise around the neck. He mouthed something at the lens. I could not hear it, but I recognized the words. "Do not let me reach you." The lobby door opened when the deputies arrived. I stumbled outside. One deputy searched while the other reviewed the live feeds with me. Every hallway was empty except the last one. Camera 16 showed a guard standing outside the camera room with his back to us. The deputy radioed his partner and described the location. His partner said he was already there and saw nobody. On screen, the guard opened the office door and went inside. The camera room feed went black. After that, the building system stopped recognizing me. My badge failed, my code vanished, and the payroll terminal said I had never been employed. The supervisor found my uniform and thermos in the camera room, but claimed another guard owned them. He showed me the schedule. The overnight name was Arthur Danner. I kept the camera app because nobody thought to revoke my phone. For several weeks, I checked it each night. At 9:40, a figure crossed hallway B. At 11, he began his rounds. He wore my face and moved one corridor behind whoever was guarding the building. Last month, the feed changed. The new guard walked into hallway A. The figure followed him on camera, still wearing my face. A second figure appeared behind the first. The second man wore a pale shirt and carried a scan wand. His face stayed hidden by static, but the patch above his pocket was clear. It said Arthur Danner. The buildings remained locked, the checkpoints remained numbered, and the cameras continued recording. What changed was the identity of the person completing the work. The reports do not say where the missing hour, the finished signatures, or the second guard came from. Cases 13, 14, and 15 remain open.